What's good, everyone? This is your host, Tarad Rashan, and you are now tuned into Taradcast. For all of the brand new listeners out there listening to our show for the very first time, welcome. And for all of you returning listeners coming back for another weekly dose of Taradcast awesomeness, welcome back. Now at Taradcast, you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. We simply just want to add some flavor to your meal. So if we are doing that, then we are doing our job. Today's episode actually stems from a conversation that I had with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago, and it really got me thinking about myself as a man, as a black man, and I used a certain type of analogy to describe how the majority of us are, but also who we could be. So without further ado, today's episode topic is more recycling bins, less dumpsters. This is Taradcast. Let's get it. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Taradcast. I'm your host, Tarad Rashan, and I am actually coming to you all with a crick in my neck. So please bear with me. My neck hurts and I can't twist it to the right, but we are going to get this show going because a crick in my neck is not going to stop me from bringing you all the weekly content that you all know and love and deserve. And so I appreciate you all just for being you. I appreciate you all listening and for tuning in and for continuing to support this show. So today's topic is more recycling bins, less dumpsters. I'm going to talk a lot more about that in greater detail here in just a few moments. But as you already know, we have to take care of our housekeeping details, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So if you would like to take our show with you on the go, just know that we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, Spreaker, Podchaser, Castbox, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, Deezer, and YouTube. You can also find Taradcast on Throne, which is a free live messaging application that allows us here at Taradcast to exclusively reach our listeners. Make sure to sign up if you'd like to keep the conversations going after the episode. If you're looking for natural oils for ultimate hydration and care for your hair and skin, hit up the Resilient Lotus at www.theresilientlotus.com, and you can also use promo code TARADCAST to receive a discount on your purchase. And if you are a lover of authentic chunky salsas and the most delicious birria tacos and pizzas in Oklahoma City, make sure to reach out to Morenitas Salsitas at www.crtn-t.com/Morenitas-Salsitas. And last but not least, if you are in the market for an affordable graphic designer to create your next logo, flyer, album cover, or animated video, check out at Rose Graphism. That's ROZAYGRAPHISM on Instagram. As always, all of this information will be in our episode notes. All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and dive into it. And the first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that most of us men, myself included, are trash. I've said this before, I've hinted at it in other episodes, and this is the episode where I'm going to be talking about what this means in depth. And so, yes, most of us men, most of us people in general, but most of us men are trash, okay? And so, if you've been listening to Taradcast for any amount of time, starting from episode 1 all the way up till now, then you probably already know a good amount of my story. But what I want to talk about is a few key things that I have identified within myself that stick out primarily as far as the things that have made me and make me a trash person. Okay. So one of the first things that comes to my mind is being a know-it-all, especially when I was young. Like I was a huge know-it-all. I thought that I was literally like the wisest person amongst my peers. And I feel like a lot of this dealt with pride, and it also dealt with me trying to reconcile my ego and reshape it to make it look like I'm humble and I have all this knowledge and all this wisdom. But when I go back and I look at it now, even though I didn't know it back then, the things that stick out to me about being a know-it-all was that for me, it made me feel like I was better than a lot of people. It made me feel like I am the one that has all of the right answers. If you need advice, you don't go to anybody else. You come to me. I'm going to give you the clearest, most sound advice that you will ever receive in your life. And I valued that a lot. I valued being this person that in my own head, I felt like I had everything necessary to guide people in their lives. Like I was some sort of like sage or mystic or a shepherd or, something like that. Like if anybody was out here living in a way that I didn't necessarily agree with at that time, then I was going to be the one to impart knowledge that would help set them on the right path. And I believed this for a long time about myself. And with that being said, I also would observe and critique other people's actions so I could stay out of trouble, right? Like, and honestly, with this, there's not really anything wrong with like observing people and learning from other people's, experiences and learn. I'm not going to say mistakes because they're all experiences, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But where I found myself taking the huge misstep is the fact that I was also critiquing people's lives. I was critiquing people's lives in a way where I was watching and observing with intent to make it known within myself that what this person is doing compared to what I'm doing is wrong. And so I didn't really have much of a life as far as things that created experiences that shaped me. I didn't have a lot of those experiences where you find yourself in a situation, and in that moment, you have to learn more about yourself. In that moment, you see exactly how you would react, and in these times, I lived such a plain type of existence because I was scared to venture out and try things that may have been a little bit risky. I didn't really put myself in situations that could potentially later come back to haunt me as a kid. I didn't put myself in any type of predicament that when I look back, I can clearly see that after this moment happened, it changed me into the person that I am now, or it became a part of me, or I gained a piece of world knowledge, of interpersonal knowledge that has shaped my way of thinking. I didn't have a lot of that. So I was looking at a lot of people who were just simply living their lives and being who they were in those moments, and just being carefree about it, not necessarily being concerned with the consequences. And when those consequences came, being the type of people who could look at it and actually see where they were at that time and what those consequences showed them. I wasn't one of those people. So yeah, I didn't really get into a lot of trouble. I didn't really get into a lot of unnecessary business, risky business, or anything like that. And so my biggest thing was critiquing people who did. And I did so from this standpoint of authority because I always thought myself as being this pure person, right? So it's like speaking to someone who's trying to tell you about your situation, who's never been through the situation you've been through. And you're looking at them like, how could you possibly know the experiences that brought me to this point? How could you can't even relate, and yet you still have the audacity to sit here and try and tell me about myself. That was me. And I feel like a lot of this also contributed to me evolving into a narcissist. And again, just believing myself to be morally superior to others. And when I think about myself in this way, I often go back to me just touting and parading the fact that up until age 23, I was a young black male virgin, because a lot of my peers had already had sex long before I decided to. And honestly, I was making such a huge deal about it. Not that sex is nothing to write home about, but at the same time, it's just the fact that these were experiences that a lot of my peers were having. And yet when I looked at them, and I also looked at the girls that they were with, I turned my nose at them. I turned my back when it came to how I viewed them, because I'm just like, y'all are just on this straight beeline to hell, right? And I'm over here talking about all of this, importance of saving yourself for marriage and this and that, and here I am not knowing anything about anything that I'm talking about, and it's the biggest form of hypocrisy for me, because again, in my head, and I've talked about this in other episodes, in my head, my mind and my thoughts were really no different from the people who were actually brave enough just to do the actions. But I was so scared of going to hell. I was so scared of my image being tarnished. I was so scared about what people would say about me. And that was probably the hardest part of trying to wrestle with these types of thoughts. And so for me, I decided that it would just be more better and more beneficial to just think of myself as being someone who is just morally superior to everyone. So that way I don't have to think about the guilt. I don't have to think about the fear. I don't have to think about all these different things that are contributing to me wanting to do a lot of the same things that other people were doing, but I was just too scared to do them, right? So for me, that was one of those things that really stuck out to me. And also, even when I was a Christian, I was also very Pharisaic as well. I could only imagine that if Jesus himself were to actually be real and come back down to earth and say, I am him, I am he, I am the Son of God, I would be one of those people who would be like, well, I'm sorry, but I can't believe you, because when it comes to the things that I've learned and the things that I have seen, you don't match what I know. And because you don't match what I know, then I cannot necessarily claim you. I cannot, with my heart and soul, have the confidence to say that you are who you say that you are. And because again, for me, and I said this before, the Bible, the thing that I said about myself when it came to the Bible is that the only Bible that some people will ever read is how you live your life. And I thought that I was living my life in such a way to where, maybe if I were to lead someone to the Lord through how I am, then there wouldn't necessarily even be a need for me to have any type of real or solid knowledge of this very person who is standing in front of me saying that they are Jesus, because I am the embodiment of the Jesus that person needs to see. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? And that also evolved into me only caring about myself and how I believed that my version of loving people was the best and the only true version of love. And again, this encompasses all the stuff that I thought about myself when it presented itself as me thinking I'm wiser than everyone, that I have all the answers, that I am pure, and that I can do these things right, and I can show you how to live, I can show you how to be. I am the definition of a great man. And if especially in the relationship sense, if no man can love you like me, then they are not worthy. But that was not based on how I felt about another person. That was based on me and my need to feed myself these things in order to justify what I was doing. It had nothing to do with another person at all. It had nothing to do with the character, the traits, the things about another person I loved. It all had to do with me. It was very me-centric. And these were the ways that I tried to even deal with my own self-esteem and things like that. Like, I didn't turn into the handsome God overnight. Okay. This took 20 plus years for me to get to feeling how I feel about myself now. And so there were a lot of cut corners, and in these cut corners, I crafted a personality that, when you look underneath the hood, is very, very dirty. It's very, very egocentric. It's very, very self-centered. And even now in my adult years, I've still got some things about me that I've recognized that make me a trash person. And I like to pride myself on saying that I have a big heart, right? Like, I care for so many people, and I want to see a lot of people do well, and I just want to be the best person I can be in their lives. But I can still be a trash person despite how big I think my heart is. And I've learned that there are parts of me that harken back to my younger self, where I only care about certain things that pertain to me. And there are other parts of me that also hear but don't listen when it matters the most. Because there are still parts of me that believe that I am right, or that my actions or that my words are right. And maybe other people just have this misinterpretation of what it is that I'm saying or doing, when in reality they're seeing it plain and I'm the one who's not seeing it correctly. And even just knowing that, learning that, and understanding that, even with where I am now as a 30-year-old man, like that part still hits me. That part still hits me. Because I'm doing this, I'm acting this way in conversations and situations where I should be listening, I should be empathizing, as opposed to trying to figure out why my actions are still pure when somebody else is saying that they're not. And I also learned this, and this is probably the biggest thing that someone really close to me told me a few weeks ago. And they said, just because you have a big heart doesn't mean you know how to take care of one. That floored me. And that's one of the biggest things that has identified within me that I am trash. I'm still trash, right? Because it takes so much time and patience and empathy and listening skills and being able to admit when you're wrong and being able to answer questions and concerns head on without ducking and dodging and making excuses when it comes to dealing with a big heart. You know, my own big heart is something that, again, I thought was a defining characteristic of who I am. But not being able to take care of one is one of my biggest flaws, one of my biggest weaknesses. Because sometimes, and I've heard this phrase, you've probably heard it too, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? And so that's basically the crux of all of this that I'm talking about right now. Paving my own literal road to hell based on all the good intentions I believe that I have. And so with that, y'all, we're actually about to go into our first break. I hope you've got your water, your wine, your juice, your tea, your soda, your smoothie, whatever it is. I hope you have it close by. I hope that you are taking a sip and staying hydrated. And when we come back from our break, we are going to talk about, well, the dumpster side of more recycling bins, less dumpsters. So take a sip, stay hydrated, and we will be right back. This is Taradcast. Yo, what's good, everyone? This is your host of Taradcast, Tarad Rashan, and I just want to welcome you to the commercial break. Now, you already know what time it is. It's hydration time. Get some high-quality H2O in your system now. Got a few things I'd like to go over. First, to all of our new and returning listeners, thank you so much for your ear and your time. To all of our Patreon supporters, I just want you to know that we are not able to do this without your direct support. So the biggest, dopest Taradcast thank you goes out to you. If you're listening in and you're thinking about becoming part of the Taradcast Patreon family, we'd love to have you. You can find us at www.patreon.com/Taradcast. Now on Patreon, we have 3 tiers of support. A $2 tier, a $3 tier, and lastly, a $6 tier. Each tier comes with its own set of unique perks, so if you find one that fits you, sign up. For us, the main thing is keeping our subscription prices affordable. We know that you work hard for your money, and if you choose to support Taradcast this way, we truly want to make it worth your time. To find out more about our Patreon and the perks with each tier, visit www.patreon.com/Taradcast. We've got it all laid out for you. Also, we've got a merchandise store. Pick up some tees, hoodies, leggings, and more at forevercertain.redbubble.com. All proceeds go right back into the Taradcast podcast and allow us to keep making high quality content for people just like you. For our listeners out there who would like to support us in a non-monetary way, we'd love that too. Share our show with people you know. Also, share us on your social media. And if your favorite Taradcast streaming service allows you to rate and review our show and you're loving what you're hearing, take some time and leave us a 5-star review. Ratings and reviews are what set us apart from other podcasts and also helps us to recommend our podcast to other listeners we otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to reach. Lastly, if you'd like to reach out to us directly, email us at taradcast@certaint.com. That's taradcast@CRTN-T.com. All of this information can always be found in our episode notes, so make sure to check there if you forget any of the information we just went over. Once again, thank you all so much, and let's get back to the program. All right, y'all. We are back. This is Taradcast, and again, I'm your host, Tarad Rashan, and we are going to jump into the dumpster side and why most of us men are dumpsters. So, Probably asking yourself, you might not be asking yourself, but most people have to start out things like this by saying, you may be asking yourself, but you may be asking yourself, why do I use this particular analogy, a dumpster? And simply put, because a vast majority of us men are full of shit. Whether it's our own or someone else's, because we're full of shit, it's like we let our shit spill out on others. And people who come to us, they leave us covered in us, smelling like us, with pieces of us attached to them. And so, in essence, our presence is polluting other people's lives, especially when it comes to our women. Okay? Now, take a moment to just think about this, because I know that this particular analogy can go for anyone, but for me, I can only speak for myself as a black man and what I have observed from the men who look like me, especially with attitudes and what's popular and what's actually becoming normalized these days. A lot of us are dumpsters. We're full of shit. We are. Because when you think about it, the actions that we partake in, and also even the actions that are done to us, they change our view towards women. And also, they influence how we adopt these views and turn them into experience-based logic. And in situations like this, there are a lot of black men out here who will sit here and say, they won't date black women, they won't marry a black woman because they see black women like this, or a black woman hurt them, or whatever. And it's like they're taking a very liberal approach to these types of statements, as opposed to a very conservative approach. Now, when I say liberal, I mean in the sense of generalizing and saying that, because I saw you act this way, then that means the majority of you are going to act this way. And when I say a conservative approach, I mean from the sense of, this experience was an isolated incident and not all experiences are going to have the same outcome, right? But I feel like because we generalize our women, we generalize our experiences, I feel like we equally put out information and we equally engage in actions and we equally mistreat women through those generalizations. And this is something that I feel is becoming all too common. I feel like it's something that has existed before me and has continued to exist long after I was brought here. And I feel like in so many ways we are perpetualizing this type of mindset, which encourages these types of actions and thoughts towards ourselves and our women. Because you will hear men, especially us, and especially because we're popular, even white guys and other people who are not black, saying things like bros before hoes and whatnot, and money over bitches and what. Do I have to put an explicit sticker on this? I'm cussing a lot. but I'm just trying to be real. That's really all I'm trying to do. And because we put these things out there, these are the types of things that, as we normalize them, so many people are going to think that this is how we are, that this is the general stereotype for how a black man is, for how we can expect a black man to act, how we can expect them to treat a woman. And I feel like this does such a huge disservice to us, because we like to tout all the time that we are not a monolith as black people. And you know what? You're right. We are several monoliths. If you don't fit this mold, then you have to fit this mold. And if you don't fit this mold, you have to fit this mold. There is no room for being all of it, right? There is no room for just having pieces of all of these things within you, or not having any of them in you at all and still being allowed to be invited to the cookout, right? We tend to gravitate on what's familiar, and typically what's familiar is based on generalizations. And most of the generalizations about us are negative. And so now, and I was talking with my wife about this, now we are taking, and other people are taking, these negative generalizations and stereotypes and blanketing them over us to make it seem like this is how we are at our core. And it's not true. But from the standpoint of being a black man, for a lot of us, it is true. We don't even know why, nor do we question why it's true. We just believe it. We just do it. We just act on it. And I feel like that is one of the biggest and one of the dumbest things that we could ever do. And the thing is, even if we have a moment, especially like a tragic moment, where we are able to decide or come to a decision where we are going to empty out the trash from our dumpster, give it time and we will fill it back up again. Like, isn't that crazy? Like, we will fill it back up again without a second thought. Being a dumpster, when it comes to most of us men, is nothing but an example of how fragile our self-esteem can really be, as well as how much we decide to hold on to without giving ourselves multiple opportunities to empty and cleanse ourselves. We keep a lot in until we fill to capacity and over capacity. And the things that we hold on to, the things that we allow ourselves to be filled up with, we hold it in and we allow it to rot and to fester and to mutate until we overflow and spill out onto others through our words and our actions. I know each and every one of you listening has seen somewhere a dumpster that was too full for its own good. Trash is spilling out the top. Trash is spilling out the sides. You got weird fluids leaking out from the bottom, like all kinds of things that make this area look horrible. I've seen it. I know you have. And this is something that we continue to just permeate when it comes to our personalities, when it comes to our character. We have no regard for how we are perceived. We go based on this caveman-like way of acting where we just claim to not know any better. We just allow ourselves to be so swept up in certain moments and certain things and by certain people to where we just throw our hands up and we're just like, you know what? I was caught up and that's just me. I can't help it. You know what I mean? Like I can't help it. I couldn't help it. This was right here in front of me, so I did it. Right? A lot of us say that. A lot of us act like that. A lot of us feel that. I've had some moments like that within myself. I'm saying all these things, and I want y'all to know that I, myself, am not exempt. I am not exempt. When I was talking with my friend from the UK, she was telling me that, a lot of the things that we were talking about, especially the things that I would recount based on my own experiences, they gave her a lot of hope, because I was not afraid to look at myself and really critique myself about how I used to be and where I'm trying to go now. And I appreciate that. It doesn't necessarily make a lot of my decision-making processes the best at certain times, but what I want to do sincerely is look at my actions and look at how they may affect other people, and realize that yes, I may play a role in somebody else's hurt, and for a fact I know that is true for certain people. That fact is not lost on me at all, and I have to own that. I have to take accountability for that. I have to really understand that I can, and I probably still will, hurt someone. But even through that, I at least have the knowledge that if someone tells me that I hurt them, then I will listen, because I need to know how. And I'm not going to come to a point where I look at and listen to and observe what they're saying and try to figure out reasons why they are wrong and why my actions shouldn't have been taken the way that they were taken. Because if I just totally disregarded what they're saying, then I'm doing nothing but filling up my dumpster even more. And now my overflow is spilling onto them. And I genuinely do not want that for me. And I can only hope that a lot of us do not genuinely want that for ourselves. But again, it requires you understanding that in certain situations, you may not be in the right. And even if there is a slim chance that you are, still think about your actions and your words from another person's standpoint, and consider what they may be feeling and observing from you. So that way you can go forth making better decisions, creating more meaningful relationships. Because that is one of the things that is severely lacking when it comes to our community. We look at a man as this certain set of characteristics. We look at a woman as this certain set of characteristics. And we don't actually see the person in between. And so when you affect someone on a personal level, not a superficial, a personal level, that is the moment when you should start really trying to observe what you can do to be the best person you can be. And so with that being said, y'all, we're actually going to talk about that in the next segment. Y'all, I'm trying to keep this under like 45, maybe 50 minutes. But at the same time, the next part of our show after this break is we're going to talk about now the recycling bin aspect of this conversation. So I hope you still have your drink close by, take a sip, stay hydrated, and we will be right back. This is Tarodcast. All right, y'all. Welcome back. And we are now at the tail end of our show. And now I want to talk about recycling bins. I want to talk about the recycling bins, because in that conversation that I mentioned earlier in the show, where I was speaking with my friend and I came up with this analogy on the fly, I didn't necessarily want to just leave it at dumpsters, because yes, a lot of us are full of trash, but there are also different types of trash receptacles. And now I want to talk about recycling bins. So what does this mean to be a recycling bin? And simply put, yes, it still holds trash, albeit the trash is of a certain kind. Okay. A lot of recycling bins, depending on what you put in them, they don't stink. And they don't have weird fluids congregating and coagulating into mysterious green, purple, dark brown ooze that comes out from underneath them. Also, their contents, whether or not they're overflowing, can be repurposed and remade into products that continue to serve others. You know, I remember this song on this old TV show, Rocko's Modern Life, and it was like, RECYCLE, recycle, CONSERVE, conserve, don't you POLLUTE, the something river, skies, or sea, or else you're gonna get what you deserve, like something along that. You probably remember it better than I do. I think it was on Rocko's Modern Life. It may have been on another show, but I remember that song from my childhood, and that actually sticks out to me because, you know, when you think about recycling something, then you're putting it into a specialized trash bin, right? And this particular trash bin is collected, and the materials inside them are, you know, melted down or whatever, repurposed, you know, remade into something that is going to reduce the amount of waste that we tend to accumulate. And recycling, it is a very healthy practice, especially when it comes to the conservation of our environment and this planet. But at the same time, it's not something that a lot of people think about doing because, you know, it takes our convenience a step further. And now we have to be thinking about what we're putting into the trash as opposed to what we're putting into a recycling bin, right? Because there are a lot more dumpsters out here than there are recycling bins. Most of us are more accustomed and used to dumpsters. And taking time to put something into a recycling bin, it calls for being cognizant of what we're doing. It takes mindfulness to dispose of something with the knowledge that once it is taken away, it can serve a greater purpose. And the thing about this is, sometimes we may not know what purpose something will be remodeled into. We may not understand what may happen to that item we put into the recycling bin. But we know that it is going to become something that produces less waste. It's going to produce less waste. And the more things that we decide to recycle, the more things that even we decide to repurpose, the more we are going to see the trash become a secondary and even a minimal part of our lives. Like we can literally transform ourselves from dumpsters to recycling bins. We can actually redefine and repurpose what goes into us and what comes out of us. Because what goes into a dumpster, when you put it in there, whatever's in there is not about to be reused by anybody. You know, it's not about to be dug out and, oh, I could use this, or, oh, I find the value in this. Nah. Most cases, a dumpster is going to just sit there and pile on and pile on and pile on the waste. But the thing is, we still have the ability to just redefine and repurpose what goes into us and what comes out of us. We can actually use our experiences to recycle, repair, and repurpose our influences in our relationships, our friendships, and our children. You know, there's a part of me that I'm glad that, when I was growing up, I didn't necessarily get the types of talks that taught me how to manipulate my way into a woman's good graces. Because there are a lot of people, there are a lot of young boys that get taught what's called the game, right? And I feel like for me, in some ways that's to my detriment, because I am not smooth at all. Like, outside of my music and my poetry and the occasional conversation where I'm really feeling confident, I am not smooth at all. Like, I have a horrible stutter. My brain tends to go out in certain situations where I am forced to think on the fly. And so, again, when it comes to the game, I don't know nothing about that. A lot of us do. And that's the way that we continue navigating our lives, thinking about everything and everyone as a part of the game. But the thing is, I also realize that if we actually started replacing those types of conversations with conversations that actually taught our children how to look for character first, how to look at traits first, how to read people, how to empathize with people, how to understand when somebody is hurting or someone has something on their mind, whatever the case is, these types of conversations. If we actually started having these in place of the game, just how many more productive and healthy people we would be creating. Like, just think about that. Think about the difference we'd make if we figuratively and literally reduced the landfills full of our trash within our lives and started making more decisions to find things to recycle. Just think about taking those experiences that you have been through, the things you have seen, and instead of thinking, oh, well, this is just the way the world is, I'm just going to play my part, I don't care who I hurt, and actually taking time to be like, you know what, I know that this exists. The pain I felt from this situation is real, but I am not going to let it consume me. I'm not going to let it make me into a dumpster. I don't want to be a trash ass person. Imagine if we could just do that. Simply put, making a decision to recycle the things in our lives that made us think a certain way, and using it so that way we can continue to help and inspire those that we come into contact with. Because honestly and truthfully, to someone, all of us, you and me included, will be trash. That's just a fact of life. I know I'm trash to a few people out here. I am. And I can accept that, But we also have to remember that we have direct control over whether we allow ourselves to be a dumpster who does nothing but hold trash, or a recycling bin that transforms our trash into experiences and knowledge that will make us and others better. And that's our show, y'all. But before we go, I just want to say this. Y'all, we do not have to wait until we are old and gray to make the transformation from dumpster to recycling bin. We don't have to sit here and let all this life pass us before we decide to be reflective and introspective on the things that have shaped us into the people that we are. We do not. We can actually start now. And that's the beautiful thing about where we are now. We can actually start now. So that way we can be better people as we continue to live. And we can continue to inspire the generations behind us. We can continue to inspire our partners, our family members. We can continue this process of making our communities a better place, an actual safe haven for people where they can come and receive knowledge and true wisdom. Because we are recycling the things that have made us who we are, and we're giving them different purpose. We can do that. We just have to start it now. Don't be afraid. Start it now. But again, y'all, thank you all for listening. I appreciate y'all being here. And that's our show. That's our show. I don't even think I had to say it, but you all know how to find us. You all know how to support us. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review and also take the conversation to our throne room. The links, along with everything else, are in the show notes. And as always, I leave you with this. Wherever you are, whomever you are, I want to always encourage you to be more introspective and vulnerable with yourself. Know who you are, trust in who you are, love who you are. Thank you all so much for listening. I've been your host, Tarad Rashan. And finally, I want you to make every effort to find and keep your peace. Recycle, and I'll see y'all next time.